Okay, we are live. Let's have a quick look just to make sure that we are all good. Oh, I'm just I eat my dried mango.
Seriously? Wow.
Sorry. Professional. Having said that, Beck, you were just batting with your glasses, so we're 1-1. We're 1-1. Let's have a look.
I can't see a thing if I don't put my glasses on, so it's just the way.
All good. Okay, I think we're all good. So welcome. I'm sure people will join us. So the Fab Four from the Bad Dog Academy, Channel 4's The Bad Dog Academy, myself, Vic Stillwell, you may have heard of her. I don't know. Just right now. Joe Pay, the fabulous, gorgeous, wonderful Joe Pay, and the uber sexy, debonair Sean Brown, the fabulous colleagues from the Channel 4.
You're going to have to stop. The people are going to think I've got you on my payroll.
Yeah. Anyway, on a more serious note, obviously we've been doing these chats throughout the latest series of the Bad Dog Academy, which is now in our second series, which we are all incredibly proud of. And I have to say, I'm going to say it before I'm going to put it out there. Dare I say, last week's episode, girls, it pains me to say this, but you guys smashed it. Absolutely smashed it.
Because it was ladies' night.
It was ladies' night, and you guys absolutely battered it out the park. It was absolutely fantastic. I should really not do this live, this praise, but nonetheless, both of you just absolutely were fantastic. It really, for me, and I said this, I private messaged everyone in the group, and I said that was the essence of the show. You captured both not only fantastic dog training and showing obviously what we do, but I feel like that was only a tip of the iceberg. It really showed the impact that dogs have on our lives and talked about the story. So how did you guys feel it went first and foremost? All good?
Yeah. Joe?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, really pleased with it. I'd forgotten that we even had an episode that didn't feature you gorgeous boys. But I thought it was good. What I loved actually was that this episode showcased problems that we as trainers deal with typically. Absolutely. A lot. You know, it's not always aggressive dogs, it's not always bitey dogs, it's not always muzzle dogs. I think the thing that this episode really highlighted was just the variety of issues that as dog trainers we are invited to go into people's homes and problem solve. And I just love the variation this episode.
Yeah.
I think it was showcasing two very, not that this behavior is normal. I'm not normalizing dogs that have confinement issues or dogs that are pulling on the lead, but they're very common issues, right? Because of confinement. And I think it just showcased that they were two particularly hard cases, but very common cases that had a simpler, I don't like to use the word fix, had a simpler, simpler fix, simpler plan than is usual, I think. Yeah. Because of simply understanding. But I also think that it showcased how sometimes people misunderstand their dogs and misunderstand what their dogs are doing, especially with James and Mick, who are divine.
Oh, wonderful.
Divine.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And you know that they rescued this pug who'd had a terrible start in life but still thought that his behavior, which was overtaking their lives to the point where they couldn't go out at all, and that they were blaming him for just, being an attention seeker. And it's really very normal for people to talk about their dog's behavior like that. And then when you tell them the reality of what's really going on, then they're like, it's quite shocking to them. And I think that's where so much that this show, The Bad Dog Academy, resonates with people, because they're like, oh my gosh, we might be actually telling you something that you didn't know. And we're reframing it for you, so you might see it from a different way.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting. I had somebody come up to me this weekend. I was competing yesterday, and she said it's, how much she's enjoyed the show. And that's essentially what she said. She says it was so simple. She sort of felt initially she was almost apologetic, because she was like, oh, it was actually quite simple. And I use that term loosely, But she says, I just didn't, because she could relate to both the cases for different reasons with their own personal dogs. And she said, it really was simple. But I said, but that's sometimes I think we think it's more complicated than what it is. But if you see the world from the dog's lens, you realize actually it's about the relationship. And I think that's what those two stories in particular, and obviously all the stories have had that insight into the human dog relationship specifically to each case. But what was really, really, for me personally hit home was certainly with the colleague Labrador.
Maggie.
That was two parents trying to do something incredible for their boy who has physical challenges and obviously has health complications. And as a result, they obviously wanted the dog to enhance his life. And there was a period where there was frustration. And it makes you realize how dogs are such a, they're the most incredible animals. They really are, of what they endure, and then what they put up with, and how they interweave themselves into all of our lives. But when it goes wrong, it can overwhelm them. And they did something with a great intention, and the fact that you could help them so, again, simply, you didn't add stress to their weight. You didn't add stress to their shoulders. You went, actually, we can do this. And as a result, the thing that really hit home was you didn't add more burden to their plate, so to speak. You actually lightened the load. And honest to God, it was watching some, especially as a parent, you're like, that guy was just, what a great pet. Both of them, weren't they? They're amazing.
Yeah, they were. And obviously Seth has a profound disability and a very rare, disability, rare disease. And so this dog, they brought Maggie into their life on the recommendation of a friend of theirs who said that maybe Seth will be able to, this dog will be good for Seth. And truly, this child that was very, very young when they brought the dog in was not really able to move very much, but just trying to reach out to Maggie, he suddenly rolled over.
Oh, honest to God, that bit was like, oh God, BAFTA, give that girl a BAFTA.
Right, exactly. I mean, seriously, and they got that on camera. Not when she was just videoing that interaction between Maggie and Seth, and he was on the ground. But incredible how this dog as well, this dog is able to understand, because they've got an older son who's very rough and tumble, and they like to play. And so Maggie will be rougher with this son. But the younger boy, Maggie knows that this boy has disability, has limitations, and she's very gentle with him. And they haven't taught her that. That's just how she is. If you can't look at a dog and you can't look at that story and be moved by it, then I don't know.
Yeah, what would
go watch, Great British Bake Off or something.
yeah.
Make a cake.
It was amazing, honestly. And as I said, it definitely, made me, definitely brought a lump to my throat, certainly. And I'm a heartless SOB, so you can hit me, So on that note, so Sean, obviously you've got your centre up in Durham, Petsicides, and you're aspiring to basically take that whole concept to a bigger level, where you want to bridge the gap between using dogs and horses to enhance the lives of kids. So just tell us a bit about that little plan you have.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a few things. We're going to do some therapy with children using horses, and there's different angles that we come at it with, if we're doing an equine or if we're doing dogs as well. A company we already work with, Portable, they do, if people get a life-changing illness and they've got a domestic dog, now a therapy dog, let's say, that's trained from a puppy all the way up, they might do, let's just say it's 1,000 things. It's not, but they do multiple things to a very, very high standard. We'll then try and take their domestic dog and we'll try and make it essentially see if it can do 2 or 3 core things that person might then need. And then it's already their dog. They already know the dog. They're already really comfortable with it. We just try and see, can we mold the dog into doing a couple of things. The thing that we find with the equine stuff is kids, adults as well, veterans, older people, we do a huge range that we're looking at, the impact that animals can actually have with humans. And sometimes it can just be being with them, being in the presence of them, having that like touch and that feeling with them. We find with like, so for example, some of the stuff we're doing with dogs is more with the children that are noise sensitive. If you have the dog with them and see there's loads of noise, the child, because it's caring for the dog or thinks it's caring for the dog's not really bothered about the noise, but because the kid thinks it is, it takes that sense away from them, and because they're given that caring nature, it helps them overcome it, and then they feel like they're overcoming it as a team. So actually the dog then like pushes them on and they're able to cope in them environments. So there's a massive range of that we're looking at. And one of the things you're saying about it was simple. I'm a big believer in something simple done well is better than something complicated done poorly.
Yeah.
And
Agree.
we've seen it in different measures in the show. With Vix, is they were really, really good people, and they're snowed all under a bit with all the circumstances, and they just didn't know what to do. That dog had gears. I mean, you could work that dog to probably quite high. And all it was is just when it went out on a walk, it thought, all right, I'm just going to try and max out now, because it was going through. It knew how to manage the levels with its children. So it just needed to be taught of saying, well, actually, you can go full tilt, but can you just wait until you're off the lead? And when you're on the lead, can you just walk all right with us?
Yeah.
And it came on. And then with the other family, with the barking, if you've done something really complex with them, it would not get delivered. Yeah. So sometimes as trainers, you got to be, well, yes, if I took the dog, I might do 100 different things with it and mix and match it, and we build up this profile. But will then people at home actually deliver on that? And if you try and set that, you're basically just wasting your time, because it'll never happen. So actually, you're seeing in the show really effective ways of trainers adjusting to levels of saying, oh, how can we get this so it's actually delivered? And to be honest, the show, the emotional side, the connection is where it's amazing, really, because everything we're trying to do, that I'm trying to do at this new centre, is about that. Sometimes we just get the kids in and they just sit with the dogs, and it changes them, and that effect actually can last a week. You know, it's not something that as soon as they leave the room and then they're excited, and then them kids are excited to come back and see the horses again or see the dogs again, and they build up a bond, and then they're overcoming challenges together. So really that it links back to the episode. The episode was powerful of 3 cases with different meanings, and actually the journey that each owners and dogs were going on, and the understanding of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, how about you? What's your take on less is more then when it comes to behavior resolution? Because sometimes, I think we've all, in certain circumstances, there is complexities. For example, the case with the 2 dogs that had issues between them, that's quite a complex case, needs a lot of unpacking, needs a lot of understanding. But what's your feelings about sometimes less is more?
Oh, I think, to be honest, I'm not sure it's sometimes. I think even with the cases that are complex, if you, as Sean was just saying, us as trainers, I don't know when you guys work, but when I'm meeting a dog and a family, I will start with a little idea, and then it's like a spider's web in my head. It's going off in like 10 different directions, going, we'll do that, and then we'll join it all together, and then it's going to be like this, and blah, blah, blah. And I would love to just get all that out to my customer immediately, but you can't do that because they can't see that bigger picture yet, because at the moment, for whatever the problem, their world with their dog it feels quite small, and they just can't imagine all of that complexity that we just pin together in our head because we've done it before. So I think whatever the problem is, it's really important to take tiny steps, even if it's whether it's a basic problem for me or a more advanced complex issue. I try to get, especially my one-to-one clients, to sign up for a package, even if each session they have is very short, so that we can make the steps tiny, do less to begin with. And I'm sure you guys are all the same, that my clients are in contact with me in between each session so that I can give them support and I can push them on. So I think baby steps is important, because clients can then track their own progression and see those little baby steps changing and taking place, and then they can start to get on board with you. And if you've done baby steps, then I think even remotely, if you know, a client has a real win in a week and sends me a video, I'll be like, oh, great. Okay, let me give you the next step. Yeah. But if you give it them all at once, you forget. It's same as, you know, with everything. If we go for a doctor's appointment, or we go for, I don't know, you go see your accountant. If they give you a whole load of information, you don't take it all in. No. So I think it's better value for their time, for their emotion, for their money, because they're paying for a trainer, to do tiny baby steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I 150% agree. Obviously, you know, I teach a lot of people for various things, whether it be, you know, behavior modification, reactivity, etc., but also, you know, dog sports. And the common factor, I would say, which you two did really beautifully, was to align yourself with the goal of the family or the individual. As dog trainers, as professional, as a coach, I can give them 25 different options. But actually, if the person only wants options 1 to 5, my job is to align myself with what they want, to allow them to shine. It isn't about us. It isn't about me showing all that I can do. It's about getting behind the person, the family, the team, and allowing them to be the best. And to me, that's what coaching and what we do is all about. And you two did that absolutely beautifully, you know, in that episode. So really great illustration of, as I said in the voice note, the show was sort of pitched to me as a potential person to be part of the show, as telling the human story, or the story between the dog and the human and the relationship. And honest to goodness, it was absolutely, that was beautifully done by you both. So shout out to no, just everybody involved. And we know there's a lot of moving parts. There's the production. They have to then bring it all together, all the pieces of the puzzle. And as I said, 5 Mile Films definitely did a great job of that. So the other cases that we had was obviously the 2 pugs, which Vic dealt with, again, which had separation anxiety, you know, some history before. So Sean, you obviously deal with a lot of dogs that have been rescued. You're involved extensively with rescue. What are your go-to pieces of information or tips for anybody taking on a rescue or rehome dog?
Quite a one to unpack. At the very start is just go slow and give them a chance to decompress. Most rescue dogs will be returned within the sort of first 2 to 4 weeks. That's because they're decompressing. Sometimes the behavior, as you're seeing, isn't really their personality. It's just them a little bit on edge. There's a lot of cortisol normally still be in them. And just in layman terms, it's just basically that they're trying to get used to this new setting. They've came from potentially a really stressful environment, and they're trying to just figure it out. So go slow with it. Set a nice, good routine for them as well. So something that they can settle into. The worst thing is some people, they'll go back and everybody has good intentions with it. But what they'll do is they'll get the dog back and they'll take it for 5 walks a day. They'll do this. And then for the first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you start going back to work and you start leaving the dog. So what you've done is you've settled it into a really highly strung routine, and then you're changing the routine again. So just bring them in, and within reason, try and just settle them into what is going to be your new daily routine. Plenty of enrichment feeding, especially if they're confident. Enrichment feeding. If they're a little bit nervy, try and give them good structure. Dogs that have got more anxiety want good solid structure. Try and walk them similar times to start off with, similar routes, feeding times similar, and that just helps them just bed in to what they're doing. And then do a bit of training with them. Do not if they're reactive, not like separation anxiety, all that stuff yet. Do fun stuff with them, just fun training, because that's that bond that you'll then start building with them, and that relationship, and then they're overcoming stuff, but you're doing it as a team together. Then when you do get onto the later stuff or the little nicks that you want to get out, you've already got that bit of reputation and bond with the dog. And then and yeah, that's I would say there's a lot of lines you can go down, but the biggest thing is just go slowly and simple with it, and just let them settle into their routine.
Yeah, great ones. How about you, Joe? How would you advise your clients that are thinking about taking on a rescue dog or a rehome dog, or have one and they bring them to you? What are your go-to pieces of advice or tips?
Very similar, I think, to what Sean's saying. As always, research the breed. Research the breed that you're bringing into your home so that you know what behaviors are typical for that breed. So you know what you might see, you might not, but what you might see. Relationship building every time, every time, which is effectively what Sean is saying. And similarly with the anxious dogs, you know what I'm like, we all know I love an anxious dog. Anxiety loves predictability. So the routine is, I love what Sean said about routine. That predictability can really reduce anxiety, and then you can start to build a relationship with the dog that is actually beneath the surface. Yeah, but pretty much recap what Sean would say, to be truthful.
Excellent. And Vic, a slightly different question to you. So if somebody's thinking about taking on a rescue dog or a rehome dog, what are the things they should be considering? Because often people get a dog either spontaneously or, you know, they let, which is a lot of what we do, we let our heartstrings pull at us. But if you were to try and be a little bit more pragmatic, what would be the things that you would advise them to do when looking for a rescue or a rehome dog?
Well, I mean, you know that they have a history, and sometimes they know the history and sometimes you won't know the history. And in the case of Charlie the pug, they knew his history. They didn't exactly know what had happened to him, but they knew that this dog had been really kept outside and had been kept in kind of an outhouse, as it were. And they did bring it into the house sometimes, but really this dog came in a very, very poor condition. And so they had some idea. They just didn't know his life. And actually living with the dog, they suddenly saw probably bits of what his life had been like before. And so I would say that my piece of advice to people who are getting a rescue dog is that you might start discovering, if you don't know the history of the dog, you might start discovering behaviors or things that give you pointers on what has happened to the dog before. And if the dog, for example, is a bit funny about being touched, it's not necessarily that this dog's been abused. I think that's a lot of people might think that. It might just be poorly socialized and just not very used to being around humans. So that's what I would say. And I deal with a lot with dogs because I don't do private training anymore, but I do a lot of big rescues. And so here we still have a lot of puppy mills and dog fighting busts and stuff like that. So I'm called in to help on scene. And what we found, especially with our dogs, not so much the pups, but breeding dogs from these facilities, is that they're just been used to confinement. So one of the worst things you can do to a dog, especially a dog that's been the breeding dog at these facilities and lived their whole life in a cage, is to put them in a big area. They don't know what to do. Just to shove them on grass. They've never been on grass. They don't know what to do. And so, and then if you do, even if it's like a room that in your house, they're gonna go around the edges because they just don't know what to do. So I always say you take these dogs from confinement and you put them into confinement for a bit, or at least you give them an option of confinement. So a crate with an open door, and sometimes like a little blanket or something over the top of it, so the dog can go in and feel safe because that's all they've ever known. And then gradually you can introduce it to the world. But I think what Joe is saying is that, and Sean is saying, is being very slow and understanding with these dogs is important. You know that there's going to be like what they call the honeymoon period, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks, where the dog is settling in. Sometimes the honeymoon doesn't go very well, and sometimes it's amazing and you think, oh my God, this is the best dog ever. And then the dog gets comfortable and you see some of the dog's real character come through, and it's going to be a dog. And then you don't like that because sometimes dog behavior, we humans don't like dog behavior. So I think it is to understand what you're bringing in, to understand that there are going to be potential challenges, and to build your support system. I'm a big believer of building your support system, from your vet to a trainer, to a walker, to people around you, just to help you, because sometimes you need it. Look, this dog's coming into your house and it's going to, this dog's life is going to change, right? And your life is going to change too. So in order to build that great team, you need to have that support system around you, because as Sean knows, as a former rugby player, there's no team without all your team members. So build your team members.
Yeah, great.
Love that.
Definitely with the, like, even things like looking at freedom fields, stuff like that, where, because think about how you're feeling as well. That you might not have the bond with the dog, and the dog's out on a walk, and the first time I know if I got a random dog now and I let it off in an open field, I would be on edge. And then you present that. So just give yourself a chance. It's like great what Vic's saying about the confinement. Some of them are one confinement. Some of them you'll try and put them in a crate. Instantly you'll know that is, and whatever it is in your background, if you've always had puppies and you've always thought we crate the dog every time, it's always unfortunately, if you bought a 3-year-old dog, sometimes they just will not go back in a crate because they could have had some trauma from that. So it's
Absolutely.
then just working with it. Just be flexible, go slow. Might not be a crate, might be a room, might like being on a sofa, a chair, might love just being on a bed. I mean, I had a Rotti that was in a kennels for 3 years, and she loved lying on hard floor. So, you know, it took her ages to even want to be on. It's just that the dogs are brilliant at adapting to their circumstances. So if you just give them a chance and go slow with it, they will adapt and they will settle in to the pattern and the change.
And I think you saw that in Charlie, right? The pug who had been confined could not. They shut the door. He could not. He could not be confined. And that was a problem. It wasn't a separation anxiety issue. It was a confinement issue. And I think that's what trainers have to be really careful of labeling stuff as separation anxiety. Separation anxiety is truly a condition, right? And we shouldn't be labeling that and giving dogs labels. This was confinement. And when we understood that, and when James and Mick understood it, that's when everything fell into place.
I think that point there, Vic, is it. That's why getting an experienced trainer, and it's not saying some trainer. It's better if you just get a trainer that's dealt with cases like that before, so they know what they're doing. Because, like on that show, Vic, you could have went down the route mistakenly of separation anxiety, and you would have went weeks and weeks, and you might have had no results. And that's the thing, is the key to all dog training is just knowing what it is, and that's half the battle. And then you can go, right, now let's move forward in the right direction. Otherwise, you kind of can just wander down the wrong roads and not really know why you're not getting any progress.
And that just on that point, that's experience, isn't it? Because the two things can look very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people would have said, okay, the dog's got separation anxiety, and then gone down various routes, you know, possibly medication, etc. And you kind of go, well, actually, that wasn't actually the problem. So you probably would have been back at square one. The point that I would add to the brilliant advice that's already been given by the other members of the Bad Dog Academy team is ditching labels. So as Vic just said, one of the things that people can do is attach a label to a dog, whether it be he's a reactive dog, he's a rescue dog, he's a this dog, he's a that dog. What a label does, it puts your dog firmly in a box, and that box allows you or causes you to see them in a very specific way. For me, I think that labels are limiting. I urge you to ditch the labels irrespective of what it is. Look at what you have, decide what you want, and the bit in between is the training and the work that needs to be done. And the more invested you are into the process, and you are patient and also set achievable, realistic goals, you will be successful. It's inevitable. So definitely my advice is ditch the labels. Joe, I know you wanted to add a point to that as well.
Oh, it's just a quick point that I've noticed of late. People coming with puppies of specific breeds and saying that, oh, my breeder has told me that my puppy will likely get separation anxiety.
Wow.
Before they've even got the dog home. I've had this happen recently with Italian Greyhounds. I've had loads of Italian Greyhounds the last 3 months, more than I've seen in years, but also with Cavapoos and Cockapoos. Oh, and who was the other one? Oh, Vizslas. Yeah, Vizslas. And it was interesting that the range of breeds, but also breeders warning of it before the family have got home. So even before they've got their puppy home, they're already attaching a label, but they're already worrying about something that may never come to pass. And I don't know, you know, I think you can start to see ghosts where there are none, just because you're worrying about what might happen rather than actually experiencing your dog and observing them and listening to them, and then making a decision about what you can see rather than what you think might happen.
Absolutely.
I don't know where that's come from, but
yeah, definitely train the dog. You know, it's that train the dog in front of you, and you know, as I said, for me, labels definitely limit the possibility. And you know, if you want to get the best out of the dog, you have to consider that anything is possible as long as you put the work in and are realistic about what's attainable for you and that dog. So the third case that we looked at was the Cockapoo, Sunny. It was Sunny, wasn't it? Sunny the Cockapoo, who was a lockdown puppy, and that's something that I think a lot of people have experienced. A puppy that was bought with good intentions in somewhat of a very surreal time that hopefully none of us will ever have to experience again, when there was restrictions and limitations in what we could and couldn't do in lockdown. Now, what I've seen a lot of is not necessarily dogs that were sort of negatively impacted per se with reactivity, but with adolescence. But with lockdown, I should say. But what happens post that is the time span of lockdown. They then enter adolescence, and that's when they start to experience normal adolescent behavior without the buffering and the advantage of having those proactive steps that we normally would do with the puppy: exposure, desensitization, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got a dog that hasn't had that. You might have had a dog that might have not necessarily the best genetics. They might have been a puppy that was bred, by somebody with not necessarily the correct moral compass. And therefore you have a dog that has a predisposition to behavior in a surreal set of circumstances that now post those set of circumstances, I should say, going back to normal, like Joe said, sensory overload. And now you've almost taken them and stuck them in the middle of the sensory equivalent of Trafalgar Square, and it's just too much for them. And often what we define as reactive is a dog that's just overstimulated, and we definitely need to be looking at the world from the dog's perspective. So Joe, tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that specific case.
So Sonny, he was, bless him, he was what we typically see from a lockdown puppy. And it's good that you mentioned adolescence, actually, because as the eases off in lockdown were happening, a lot of those puppies that have been got during lockdown were actually hitting adolescence about then. So their first experiences were often during a second fear period anyway, which is not great. But for Sonny, he was easily overstimulated by noise. He was overstimulated by movement. He was very swept up in the arousal of the family. And they were worried about him, and that spiraled. I also just want to hark back to what you said earlier, Kamal, in that what does the client want? So Sonny didn't just have a problem at home. Sonny also had a problem out on walks, which we didn't touch on during filming, but we did touch on separately when I worked with the family separately. But their priority as an Indian family, their priority was to have a house full of people all come around, enjoy food. They couldn't. Their priority, they were really worried about the younger members of their family. Their children were older, but they had nieces and nephews who were younger, and they were frightened of Sonny hurting the children. So it was it was a very emotional problem for them. Their own, the Rudge and Jash's, their own arousal level was so high. And they felt so demoralized because they had got Sonny, as you said, with the best intention of, we've got all this time at home, it's the perfect time to get a dog, we've always wanted one, and it just didn't turn out the way they anticipated. So for them, setting realistic expectations, going in baby steps was so important. But I think what they found, we did lots of work post filming, but what they found really difficult was staying motivated after, that honeymoon period again, that initial flush of, I've had my training and it was today, and then tomorrow it's going to be great, and the next day is going to be great. But then 5 or 6 or 7 days on, when you still have to do the same thing, the dog is still going to bark. It's only day 7. It's only day 10. You've still got to go. You've still got to keep going. You've got to be consistent. You really struggle to stay motivated, and barking is soul destroying. It's so loud, and it so disrupts the peace of your home that you could say, oh, it's just barking, but it's a lot when it's in your home, destroying the peace. So I really felt for this family in that it did feel very overwhelming for them, very emotional, and staying motivated was really difficult. So I think a good point to make for other trainers out in the world is that you go home at the end of that training session, you go home and everything is fine, but they still have to live it. So there are going to be some clients that you work with that need their hand holding more, and you need to be ready for that. You need to support them, because it's so easy to become demoralized when they're not with you anymore.
The 2 points that I would say that case really illustrated for me personally was I suppose it's the intention from which people will get a dog. often people will get a dog to fit the the Disney / picture of what a dog ownership is. Well, now that we have this time and retire, we're going to get a dog that's going to enhance our life, because it's going to be, an asset to our family. It's going to weave into our lifestyle, and it's going to be the family guy everybody's going to love. And the dog goes, no, that's not my agenda. And obviously those circumstances are specific. So the one is to urge people to remember that all those things are possible, but you've got to be committed to the process. And dog ownership, like raising a child, isn't a quick fix. And I think that's what, for me personally, is what the Bad Dog Academy tries to articulate and show people. And we've said this in our post episode debriefs or chats with you people watching, is we really want people to understand there is no magic wand. We obviously, as we've said, there is sometimes simple solutions that can be effective, but it is down to the owners putting the work in. And we definitely saw that with the case with the Lab Collie Cross. They said we put the work in. They've gone out there each day, done their daily, and they said they've had some minor little bumps in the road, but you've got to be committed. You've got to be putting the work in. And I think if people were more aligned with what their dogs were and what dogs are, don't get me wrong, you can get dogs that are just like Lassie and Rin Tin Tin, and they just innately know how to behave. But most dogs, they're normal dogs that go, no, strangers in the house, I'm going to bark at them. Something fast moving, I'm going to chase it. Your sofa looks edible, I'm going to eat it. That's normal dog behavior. And I think that the more that we can say to people, dogs come with they're not good or bad, they're just dogs. That's what they do, and you've got to be proactive in how you raise them. To me, that was what that case definitely showed. And also, navigating adolescence. Adolescence is a bitch. It doesn't matter who you are, what the breed is. It doesn't matter whether you've had 100 dogs. I've had nearly 30 dogs on my own. Adolescence, I always say I love them, but I don't really like them much. And it's just a case about doing my prayers each morning and going, this will come good, this too shall pass. Keep saying it, even though you're thinking, Jesus Christ, I knew I should have got a koi carp or a cat. But it's challenging. Adolescence is challenging. And I think, I didn't have one dog. I didn't have one puppy. I didn't have two puppies. I had 3 puppies in adolescence that, they went through adolescent stuff. Thankfully, they've all got phenomenal temperaments, because for me, adolescence was an opportunity to be really structured in my exposure and socialization, because it meant people come up to you. So it's just another take on it. So Vic, what's your stance on lockdown, post-lockdown, and also motivating clients? How do you motivate clients?
Well, we definitely had a lot of lockdown pups here, but in America, there was less stringent lockdown rules. Mm-hmm. So, people could go out a little bit, but we still had everybody wanting to get a dog. And so the shelters emptied, everybody. And then the people who sold puppies were all really happy, because there was a massive trade in that. And then, of course, what happened, same in England, is that about a year afterwards, when everything is getting back to normal, guess where these dogs end up? Back in the shelters again. Right. And so we saw a massive, and it still hasn't really revived. It's actually getting pretty bad here with the rescue situation. But I'd say in terms of motivating people, it's just like, I feel like, and sorry, I've got a lot of people in the background. So if you hear people like carousing, it's Sunday morning here, or Sunday and a midday, and everyone's coming around for lunch. So, but for motivating people, I like them to see results. And I also want to say to them, I do 2 things. I want to provide them with relief, right? First of all, and I want to show them that there is hope. That's my 2 things that I really, to begin with. And when you provide them relief, and I use a lot of management to provide relief, right? So you either stop the behavior right there and then, and I understand that's relief for the dog and relief for the person. And then once they're in a better place, then I can say, okay, you've seen this happen. You see that life can be easier for both you and your dog. Now we're going to build on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I try and get people in and motivate them. Mm-hmm. Things are going to be okay. Yeah. And that's how I do it. And you know what? Not everybody is going to work. And I think this is the difficulty of trainers, is that we can give even like simple stuff. And again, I should just say that simple is complex, yeah. Right? Because we make it simple. Making stuff simple it's a complex route to making stuff simple. You've got to have the knowledge to
Yeah.
know how to make stuff simple, right?
Yeah.
So, but when you do that, you really help people see that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
And so I get buy-in from people like that. But there are people that, as I said, just for whatever reason, they're too busy. They just don't, they give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
that's
and you as a trainer, you can't take on that burden.
absolutely. That's a really, really valid point, actually, Vic,
Mm.
because I think often trainers will get compassion fatigue, feeling like, well, it must be, I've got to give them more, then you can be empty, when actually, do you know what? Everybody's on their own journey. You have to sometimes accept that, you know what? I gave it my best. I gave them the best of advice. It's now down to them to implement those tools. So Sean, obviously, as a former athlete, you understand discipline, you understand motivation. I mean, every morning you get up and look at yourself in the mirror and say, and, you know, you do little poses. I mean, that takes discipline. And stroking those ponies on your Instagram, I mean, Jesus.
It's tough, mate. It's really tough.
Yeah. Life in the hard lane.
Yeah.
When you
I
do
mean,
the poses.
motivation. One of the interesting things that I would say you get from sport, right, is you learn about momentum. No one say there is no real thing, tangible thing that you can grab to say momentum exists. But anyone that's played high level sport or even low level sport, you would have felt momentum before. Just it feels like it's either with you or against you. You're in good form. Like, what is form? Why does form happen? And a lot of the stuff that we did then in our training in the centers, I try to like use that side of sport in the dog world. So we try and create momentum for people, because then when they get momentum, makes you more motivated, and it feels like it's just going your way. And then what it's all about is just keeping them in check and keeping them reined in, that they don't go like too overboard. And things like plans, give them good plans and have them in. I might know personally, right, that they can jump from 1 to 5, but I'll break it down into 5 steps, because then if they jump over, all I'm doing is I'm basically inflating their head with more confidence that they go, yeah, but I smashed them 3 steps that you set. And all I've done, I'm like, oh my God, you're way better than I thought. You're flying. Look how good you are doing. You are flying. And they're like, look how good we're doing. The train I give us up. They're going, but all that I've done there is I've hiddenly created momentum, trying to fixate that confidence to build them on. And then it means if they do have a step where it doesn't go as quick as they want, or something happens, I'll be like, yeah, but it's on the steps. We kind of knew you were going to hit this roadblock. We planned it all out. And because another thing with stuff like confidence, it's when you feel alone, or you can't work out why it is. Why am I just missing tackles on a rugby pitch, and why am I dropping the ball, or why haven't I scored a try for 3 games? And if you feel alone like that, and you're just sort of cemented in, you can't figure out, then confidence drops more and more, and you feel like I might have just lost it now. And it's the same with dogs. Is we've got to keep them away from that. Always keep them a part of your training. Like Joe said, some people need the hand held and more, and they just keep them on the track in little baby steps. And Vic said about management. Management's a massive one, because you just take the edge off it. I mean, I don't want to link back too much, but when I played sport, when players go through bad spells, you break down the game into simple things. Your next 4 carries, you're going to just move forward. I just want you to hit the ball. Make sure you catch it. No offloads, nothing fancy, and just carry the ball forward. You do them next 4 in a game, you've made yards for your team. You go, oh, I'm a little bit, and then you might go over. Whereas if I just was having a bad game, and the next 3 carries I did, I tried to chuck it out the back door, chuck offloads, and we turn over possession. You're just on this downward spiral of constant negativity of going down. So things like that just help people just keep them with you, and think about how you just get little momentum bits going forward in whatever you're doing. And you'll kind of find the buy-ins normally better anyways from them, because you've all seen it. They're just more upbeat, aren't they? They come to sessions more upbeat, happier. The Vic said the management's in place, so the problems they're having aren't as harsh and they're not as severe. And then the whole thing just kind of snowballs forward.
Yeah, I like that, Sean. That's like a metaphor for life, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just to break it down, and just if things are tricky, just focus on something, focus on what you can do, and put your focus on that. I think that's great And I think everybody should do that for themselves too.
Absolutely, just focus on the one thing. The as I said, we have to understand, this is to people that are trainers. As trainers, we do multiple roles, but the two of the main roles is obviously the teacher, to educate people about how to train their dogs. But a massive part of our role is being a coach, and a coach requires lots of attributes and skills to be able to motivate and help the person flourish. So the 4 things that I would say is, first off, relate to the client, relate to the person. If you can put yourself in their position and empathize with them, which is the second point, that will empower them and allow you to connect with them and to be able to help them from their position moving forward. The third thing is honesty. Be honest with the client, set realistic, attainable goals. If it's going to take 6 months, tell them it's going to take 6 months. Saying to them, yeah, this is going to be a miraculous cure and you're going to get this sorted in 24 hours. What that does is it causes a distrust in your relationship with them. And they then think, well, hang on, Kamal said this is going to take 24 hours. And now 6 months in, I haven't seen any improvement. Set them a realistic timeline. And the 4th thing is align yourself with what, as I said earlier, their vision is for their dog in their circumstances. It is not about you. It is about the client. It is about their journey and their relationship. So those are the things that I would definitely say as a coach, that people as trainers, you need to bear in mind. We are educators and we are coaches, and we need to play those 2 roles to the best of our individual ability. And as you saw, as I said, I can't harp on about the show last week, how beautifully that was done. And I say that was consistent throughout the series. So hopefully people will continue to enjoy the series. And we have now, is it 3 more episodes? 3 more episodes.
4 more episodes.
4 more episodes. We're halfway through.
How amazing. All the cases were brilliant. But Vic, on your case of, that is the exact example of what everything we've talked about. They come in struggling, a lot going on in their family household, downward spiral, painful walks, battling through it. You gave them knowledge, confidence, and a little bit of momentum on the set to show that it could happen and it would work. Goes away, happy, bubbly, excited to get after it, and then they're on that upward spiral of momentum, chipping away at it.
Yeah, best job in the world, isn't it? When it goes right, it's great. When it doesn't, you're like, but then that's just a challenge that you as a trainer have got to overcome and get on with it.
Yeah. Part of the job. Yeah, absolutely. So I know that we have questions from Instagram and on the live chat, so feel free to put them in. I'm going to run through some of the questions on Facebook and Instagram. So let's have a look at the comments. So Matt says, thank you, Matt, for all your support. You put lots of great comments, so we do appreciate it. The case with Charlie and the methods used with the Kong, etc. Exactly what I did with my dog and totally related to it. Absolutely. I think sometimes, again, that's such a simple but powerful and effective solution to a challenge that so many, and we all talked about enrichment and the power of enrichment. So definitely something I'd say a lot of people could utilize. Nikki said, I spent years visiting nursing homes and schools with my dogs. The impact on people's lives was truly amazing. Absolutely. And I think that's what we would all be in unison when saying, we absolutely get the impact that dogs have on our lives. Hence why we walk this path of the methods that we choose and being part of this show. It is because we value the what dogs do for us and how they make our lives better. And often when they are challenging us or pushing out of our comfort zone, my take is, well, what is this dog showing me? How can I, what is it this showing me about myself? Where can I use this as an opportunity to grow? Definitely, we all see the value in dogs. Let's have a look. So Matt said again, my lab isn't what you call a highly trained dog, but she has a different approach to kids, just slows down, lets them do whatever. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know whether, obviously everybody here has kids. I know I definitely saw my dogs absolutely get about Neve and understood her without me doing anything. They just went, oh, okay, she's a little person. Even my really, really powerful dogs. Have you all noticed the same with your dogs?
Yeah, my lab definitely when Alex, we got her when Alex was about 5 and 3, sorry. And she did. She was very gentle with Alex, very gentle.
Joe, did you have
my two were, I think my last 2 dogs came in when my kids were already here, and mine came in as puppies. So it was kind of a bit the other way around. My puppies were used to teach my children how to behave around dogs.
How about you with Bowen, Sean?
Yeah, mine have been great. To be fair, even my puppy, he's not crazy soft, but he definitely tones down, and then he'll go nuts with the other dogs, and he's careful around the kid and stuff like that. It's like the comment before, but about the nursing homes. There's something about animals. They live in the moment, and you can get an aura and a connection with them, and for whatever that is, for personal circumstances, special needs, like therapy, whatever, there is a connection there that I think we can link to them. I think animals are the same. They link to us. I mean, they're the man's best friend, aren't they? The domesticated, the utilized, the adapted so well into domestic modern civilization. There's a written term. They understand us probably as much as we understand them.
If not better. Vic, do you remember on Dogs Might Fly when we did that bit of the program where the actress started to cry?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, because yeah.
That was as a result of Adam. I'm not going to butcher Adam's surname, but Adam
Miclosi. Sorry, he knows that I always butcher it. It's fine.
Right. So, but Adam, we love you. Adam is a world-renowned, scientist who has done extensive research into dogs and the emotions, etc. And one of the things that we did on Dogs Might Fly was they brought an actress in, and she would be in a chair, and you'd be having a conversation, and we would bring each of the dogs into the space. And she would then go very quiet, and she would then, as actresses do, begun to cry and evoke emotion. And honest to God, the response from the dogs was incredible. Like the dogs that I worked with, one was Reggie, who obviously went on to fly the plane. It absolutely showed who he was. Honest to God, he was the sweetest thing in the world, and he just absolutely knew. Whereas the Malinois went, wow, freak out. And he went absolutely mad, like, oh God, stop emotion, don't do well with emotion. I must bite you. Ah!
So Malinois.
Yeah,
and then, but the one that because we were looking at empathy, right? Were dogs able to, and the one that really wasn't it. There was the collie.
Yes.
I forgot what her name was, but she really just went up. She put her head.
Yeah.
She put her head on the woman's lap.
Yeah.
Like
Just
it's all right.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the actress was so good that I even believed her.
Absolutely.
Even though I knew that it was, I was like, she's crying.
Are you like checking in on her? Like, are you actually all right?
Yeah, it was amazing what these dogs did.
Yeah. Let's have a look. So I find clients still use labels, it's a lockdown dog, and just give up for this reason. Absolutely. I would say labels are limiting. Definitely ditch your labels. And I think certainly with lockdown puppies, that phenomenon, it can sometimes be a justification for not resolving some of the issues. Oh, well, he was a lockdown puppy, or it's a rescue. And you have to accept as an owner, you have to accept a level of responsibility of going, okay, what am I going to do to turn this ship around? Do you find that a lot, or do you find that people limit themselves with labels?
Yeah. The thing is with it though, if that case there, if they say, look, it's a lockdown dog, we can't do anything. As a trainer, and if you were doing sessions with them, or if you're getting paid and they're in the session and they've said that, then if that's what it is, that's what it is. But it's then your job to be like, but we can put this management in. Absolutely. You can still help them in some form. Definitely. Don't just wash your hands and go, oh, well, they've said that. That's it. You give them as much as you physically can to help them as far along as they can. And then what will be type of thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so advertising quick fixes is just a form of baiting. Definitely. I think it's definitely an approach. It's a marketing tool. I understand how it works. Is it necessarily truthful? That's for people to discern. And I hope that what the show demonstrates is, really ask the questions of trainers. If you're not feeling comfortable with the approaches they're taking, or if you don't feel that they are something doesn't feel right, something doesn't smell right, it probably isn't right. So you just trust your instinct, I would say. Denise said confidence is massive. Absolutely, confidence is the game changer. Without confidence is the fuel. If you don't have confidence, your car's not going to go anywhere. You need confidence. Definitely.
I love Denise's pictures, by the way. That's great.
So Ben said, how would you work with a dog with a low tolerance for stress because he has a liver issue? He reacts to other dogs. Okay, physical entities. So thoughts on that one, guys?
Well, number one, make sure your medical issue is well managed. So liver and kidney issues are quite complicated. So make sure that you've got the full support of the vet around you. And if the tolerance level for stress is low for whatever reason, medical or other, then you need to break it down into those baby steps. And, you know, if you think you've got 5 steps, slice it finer, and give dogs days off, give them detox days, and rest and recovery days. Same for the humans too, because when the dog's tolerance levels are low and the human is having to deal with that, then their own tolerance becomes very frayed. So take lots of breaks, make the steps tiny.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Sean and Vic?
I completely agree. The thing about the stress tolerance as well. Don't want to repeat myself of what George said, but on a different thing, look at other stresses that they could overcome. That's more enjoyable for them. So, for example, we sometimes will put dogs in the water and we'll swim them, and we'll do stuff with them and training with them in the water, and it's because they love swimming. But we can then overcome it whilst they're getting all that dopamine and enjoying it, which then kind of can link back. It's the same for humans. It's why when we're really stressed at work, say, why does going for a run then help you with your work? It's unlinked, but it is linked. Same for dogs. Sometimes if you've hit a roadblock, kind of pivot into some other things and then come back to it. Joel probably knows people do it with like agility as well. And like, why can agility then help with reactivity or something like that? Do you know what I mean? You can pivot.
This is where I think sniff spots here in America or freedom fields in the UK are really important. And for a dog, especially this particular dog has reactivity to other dogs, which obviously causes the dog stress. Then a dog-led walk in a freedom field, or even if you can't get to a freedom field, a dog-led walk in an area that doesn't have a lot of other dogs, or maybe no other dogs, is really important. So you get the dog's head down, sniffing, discovering, curious, and that can really, really help. I just, with dogs, especially with dogs that are really uncomfortable around other dogs, sometimes you've just got to give them other things to do, and you don't take them for the regular dog walk every day. You know, they either can go in the car if they love going in the car. To Sean's point, if they like swimming, you take them swimming. There are various enrichment things that you can do that doesn't involve being around other dogs, and then giving that time so that they can lead the walk, even if it's on a long line, or just be in a freedom field. That's what I would do.
Yeah, great advice, everyone. Follow-up points that I found it really difficult being told my dog was a lockdown puppy when really he had a medical issue. I think that's a really common thing, and obviously we don't know the situation, but where there is either pain and physical impact on dogs' behavior is missed, and it's quite a common thing, I would say. To be truthful, whenever I have dogs with reactivity challenges, first thing in my head is I'm looking at, is there a physical thing? I want to rule that off, get that at the table. Again, just to reiterate on the Bad Dog Academy on Channel 4, every single dog is subject to a veterinary exam and obviously a consent before they are involved in the show. So every dog that you see has had that, that added layer of check done before they're involved. But that's just to let everybody know. Okay. Okay. Oh, what's that? Agree. Trainers tend to find what connects the dog to get rid of the label. Absolutely. Totally agree. So there are further questions on Instagram. So I'm just going to have a look through those if there's any questions. So fabulous advice as always. The lockdown dog's a big problem now. The wonderful couple with the collie cross. How brilliant were they? Yeah, thank you very much. They were fantastic, lovely people. I think everybody that story. Somebody said, Lauren Maher said, love the episode last night. We have a little lurcher puppy of 4 months where we're out on a walk and he spots a dog. He will sit and just refuse to move. He's on the lead. How do you deal with this? He's getting too big to pick it up and carry off now. Any thoughts on that one? 4-month-old puppies, that's a critical age. Definitely could be entering a fear period. If the dog is teething or post-teething, that would make them sensitive to dog-on-dog approaches, because obviously their mouth, and that's going to affect pain, is going to affect hearing, which is going to possibly make them sensitive, etc., etc. Personally, I would say less is more. When my dog's of that age, I tend to pull back from over-socializing them. I will do parallel walking if I have the opportunity. I will do distance. I will do desensitization at a distance. Let them see the world. Let the dog sit and take the world in. And when he is ready, then venture forward. Definitely don't force the dog or try and make it happen. Allow the dog to figure out. That's a really normal.
Seems like he's sort of, as you're right, he's just like taking stuff in. I do think that we need to allow our dogs to take stuff in and to observe the world, because I think when we take them out for a walk, we're taking them out for a walk, aren't we? We're walking. Sometimes dogs just need a little time just to sit and just take in everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a question I get asked a lot, that one. We do quite a few puppy classes, and it's really common, really common, probably between 12 and 16, 18 weeks. And my puppy just wants to sit on the pavement.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Pull up a pew, sit with your puppy,
sit with them,
have a snack, have a cuddle, and when they're ready, we'll go.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So Matt also said, my lab was like Charlie, distracting her with Kong truly is the solution. These days, she actually gets excited about something delicious she only gets when I'm out.
Can I just say, though, to interrupt?
Go on.
This wasn't about distraction.
Absolutely.
This was not to do about distraction. It wasn't just give him a Kong and then go. This was understanding that this dog had a busy brain, and that actually tapping into what this pug Charlie was really good at, which was sniffing and discovering and being curious, is that tapping into that and allowing him to investigate and be curious inside the house when they were there, and then also allowing him to be curious and to discover and to be busy when they were out of the house too. That was what I was going for.
Oh, that's
so you're literally changing the way the dog feels and the dog's brain. It's not distraction.
That's such a valid point that you make, because that's a nuance that I don't think that may have been missed. So it wasn't about distracting the dog.
Yeah.
It was providing an alternative and finding enrichment techniques to allow the dog to be confident in his own skin and therefore be comfortable with confinement, as opposed to saying, hey, dog, here's the Kong, we're going to bolt out the door, because that's absolutely not what Vic did. So hopefully that was picked up by people.
Well, no, I mean, at one point he was in the ball pit as well.
Yeah.
He was in the
just
ball
That
pit.
was the highlight of my week. Pug in a ball pit rolling.
Isn't it beautiful? But the edit, obviously the edit in the beginning is that I had charged up a word, we'll be back. And what they didn't show is that word in the beginning, they used that word when they were coming through the door. I'll be back. I'll be back. So they would enter. Anytime they enter, they'll say, I'll be back. So that when they eventually use it, I'll be back, and leave, he knows that I'll be back means that they will be coming back. So that's kind of what we charged up that word first. But you can't see everything, right? So we watched it and we go, oh, darn. But I understand, they can't fit everything into the time that they have.
But the nice thing is, even that people are asking questions, they're thinking about it. Hopefully, if you have got a similar problem, you reach out to a trainer and then they'll go through the same process.
Yeah, right.
That's what the show's all about.
Absolutely. Okay, so J Mills 78 said, I own a very reactive Basset Hound and work every day to train him and give him the best life possible. So I love the show and the great advice the trainers share. My only issue, why rename the show to Bad Dog Academy? I don't believe there are bad dogs. Just this, Vic's going to get triggered by everybody, just FYI. Just dogs needing more guidance.
I'm just going to drink water. I need enrichment.
Yeah.
Don't have a sniff.
Yeah. So that was a point that has been obviously discussed in our previous chat. It's one that has been, somewhat of a let's say a talking point amongst the team. We agree with you. There are no such thing as bad dogs. They're dogs that are not necessarily understood. They're dogs that don't have education. There's dogs that need help to flourish. We don't believe there are bad dogs. However, it was a decision made beyond any of our choice or influence or control. And the feeling was that this would get people talking about the show. So, and possibly it was feedback from the first series, and it was a decision, as I said. We agree with you. We don't believe they're bad dogs. I'm just mindful of not going down a rabbit hole with that one. So
no, I think just viewers, a lot of viewers resonate that the name resonated with them better than the Dog Academy.
Yeah,
like it or lump it. I mean, that's what it was.
So, love the three cases. P. Woodward Smith said, love the three different cases and the individualized approach for all. I actually laughed out loud when Victoria led the pug away from his dad, and he was absolutely fine. So funny that often when we think the issue is, it actually isn't. Oh, and I could happily watch videos of him in the ball pit for days on end. Absolutely. I think we all could. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So, Nicola C said, absolutely loved the show last night and the variety of characteristics worked in. I, for one, will definitely be watching the use Training tips for my 37-kilogram golden retriever that likes to pull at times. All dogs owners were brilliant, but especially loved the Scottish couple, and being Scottish myself, even more heartwarming. Relationship between their dog and son was so lovely. I also loved the playfulness with the older boy. Dogs are just the best. Absolutely, we echo that tenfold. Thank you very much for your comment. She also further says, also in terms of what to ask the trainers, I'm looking for advice on how to retrain recall. My 4-year-old golden retriever will sometimes listen and the other times will have no interest. He's not food oriented or ball oriented. Will sometimes listen to a whistle, but not all the time. So given all these aspects can be quite challenging with recall. So any hints, tips, advice would be welcome. So the big thing for me that jumps out is finding an appropriate reinforcement. If you say the dog isn't toy motivated or food motivated, think laterally. Some dogs, it might be the opportunity to, I don't know, go swimming, or to, you know, I had a dog that was motivated by a broom. You've got to think a little bit laterally. So all dogs will find something in their life reinforcing. Your job is to identify what it is. In that instance, what I would say is think about the food that you use and how you deliver it. So a treat to your dog can be the same treat, and in one instance, it can be the equivalent of £1. Another instance, it could be the equivalent of £50 in how you deliver it. So think about that. Think about making your reinforcement animated and interesting. Also, use your dog's meals. Use it to be creative in how you deliver food to the dog. Movement is a big thing. Do a little bit of chase games and develop more reinforcement strategies that you can use to reinforce the recall. Anybody else? Any thoughts on recall training?
I love what you said, Kamal, because it's not, so I've had a lot of people, they're like, oh, he's not toy motivated. I'm like, yeah, but it's how you use the toy, right? So I could make a toy a lot more motivating by the way that toy moves.
Absolutely.
So just something you said there. So yeah,
excellent. And Matt also said, don't you find that lack of social etiquette from lockdown dogs is actually making a lot of pups now more reactive due to experiencing negative associations with them, aka growling, barking and snapping? So I would say, and we're going to deliberately avoid this rabbit hole, socialization is an art form. Being able to socialize your dog well to create a dog that is well adjusted and balanced is a whole conversation in itself. And obviously lockdown further enhanced people's restrictions of how and where they could expose their dogs. For me, you could, as I said, you could go to have a whole conversation about how to socialize a dog effectively, and then you would break it down to the individual characters and individual dogs and circumstances, and then you've got a whole massive dialogue and rabbit hole. But I would say socialization is an art form. It is one that most people don't understand how to do well, if I'm honest. And there's a lot of misdemeanors and misconceptions about socialization stemming from, be truthful, in my opinion, the misheld belief of exposing a dog to, I think, was it 100 things?
100, yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah,
one, who's 100 things in their day? Two, why on earth would you want your dog to meet 100 anything in a day? So I'm a great believer in less is more. I'm also a great believer in setting up educational experiences rather than the dog having unsolicited exposure. And I am quite controlling of what my dogs see and what they experience. Whether it's one dog or whatever, or the breed, it doesn't matter. But to me, as I said, it's an art form in itself. Anybody
Can we down the line, Kamal, maybe in a few weeks' time, once the show's done, I think we should do a whole thing on socialization. Just that.
Yeah, it may be lengthy. We may have to be. We might be battling someone who does 3-hour-long podcasts, but we could go there. But yeah,
you might need to send snacks.
Yeah. It's massive socialization.
Yeah.
Like the nuances of like how it changes, it involves like what I do with my puppy versus my 12-week-old puppy versus lesson, whether it's male versus female. What I would do with my God, it's like there's a rabbit.
Social preferences change as you get older.
Yeah,
we gotta have a conversation.
It's so interesting because we do a lot at the centres for people, and we have dogs that we'll mix which dogs they go with to meet them preferences, and that's within itself is to show that we don't just have 3 dogs that are great for the socialization goal. They go with them 3 dogs every time. Dogs are different, personalities are different. Less is more, essentially. Good socialization is the key.
What I would say to answer Matt's question a little bit, slightly more detail, is that he asked whether he thinks it's affecting puppies now because their social experience is with lockdown adults. I think maybe is partly what he was getting at.
Yeah. Interesting.
And what I would say is, I think that comes down to, as Kamal has said, be selective, and actually everyone said it, be selective about the socialization that your puppy has. But your human needs to understand canine body language of the other dogs coming towards them, so that your human owner can read the dog that your puppy is about to meet and then take action as to whether they think they should meet that dog or avoid it.
Yeah, and as well, I mean, not every lockdown puppy's bad. So
No.
there's a lot of good people. We had loads of that brilliant dogs. So if every day you're going to the park and you're bumping into the same dog every time, just go at a different time and mix it up, because yes, that will affect the dog, but really, I mean, we can all deal with one dickhead out of 100 comp, you know what I mean? So it's the same with the socialization, is just don't, make sure it's having positive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent advice. So hopefully we've gotten all your comments. I think I got the ones of Instagram. If there are any on Facebook, obviously we will pick those up and we'll come back, because we're doing these conversations after each episode. Thank you everybody for your ongoing support and your kind comments and feedback about the show. We are unashamedly proud of it. We are, as a team, we're absolutely, we love the show and what it is showing, and we hope that people are enjoying it, most and foremost, and hopefully it's giving people an insight into not only the impact that dogs have on our lives, but also the impact of what great training and advice can have on those people's lives. We have such a privilege and we have a responsibility in our job, and obviously that the conversation itself would be the fact that the industry is unregulated, but there is a massive amount of responsibility that we all have to give people the best of ourselves, and hopefully the show is showing an example of that. So I know I'm very proud to be part of the team, and I hope that everybody continues to support it. So next week, Channel 4, 8 p.m. If you haven't checked it out, please go back, watch it on catch up. Anybody can remember what the next week's episodes are? Oh, it's the Pendango. I'm sure that's next week.
Yeah, we've got the Pendango next week. We have got little Cavapoo Parker, Victoria. You have,
yeah,
and we have the Benny, the French Bulldog, who is obsessed with cleaning.
Oh, that's a good one. Woo!
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching and asking your questions. We look forward to catching you up later on. See you later.